Well, hi there, and welcome back to Samatza on Bass. Hope you guys are doing extremely well. Some time ago, we were talking about bigger amps and smaller amps, and our last review was a Fender Rumble 25, which is a great little amp that doesn't really have any bells and whistles. It's just the bare bones basics of what you would need if you're practicing at home, if you're a beginner and you don't need to spend a lot of money to just have something that you can practice to play your music through at the same time to help to assist you. But of course, there's a limit to what that little amp can do. And on the other end of the spectrum from the little at-home and small rehearsal practice amps is something like the Gallien Krueger 1001 RB. And when you get to this end of the spectrum, then you start to get all the bells and whistles, because this is the kind of amp you would be using on big stages, on big shows, and it's the sort of stuff that you need. So on the far end there, it has the DI out, that's switchable pre-post. It's got a ground lift switch. It's got its own level control. So you can adjust the level going out to the front of house or the recording console or whatever it is that you're plugging it into. You have your input. You have a 14 dB pad, which in the case of active basses like this Serene 5-string, it's a good idea to pad it because it's very, very hot output. It has a mute switch. There's a red LED that comes on when that's activated, and that mutes the output except for the tuner, so you can still tune your bass. Then you have your volume. There is a contour knob, which used to be on the older GKs, the 400 and the 800, used to be a push button switch. It was preset, now it's variable. There is a 5/4 switch in the 5 position that gives you a little bit more openness in the bottom end, and it goes a little bit lower. It's not really a bass boost, it just actually gives you more in those lower frequencies. Then you have the presence control, which gives you that sparkle. Then you have your 4-band EQ, trebles, high mids, low mids, bass. GKs give boost control, GIVE's gate-induced valve effect, and that's that signature GK growl. Then you have a tweeter level and a woofer level, and each one has a high cut switch underneath, so you can limit what's going to the tweeter and the woofer. And this is more for controlling these Neo cabinets in bi-amp mode, and you will need a speak-on cable with 4 conductors to do that. They're easily available everywhere. Then you have an effects loop, send and return, and a tuner out. When you first turn the amp on, you'll notice the LED comes up red. It sort of checks all its circuits, makes sure everything's okay, then it turns blue and you're ready to go. And it only takes a second or two. So this is the sort of amp I would use with 2 of these cabinets realistically on a big stage. If I had drums and percussion and horns on a very big stage in a very big room, I may not have front of house support. And to be honest, I have used it that way at very loud volumes, and I have never ever found the limit of this amplifier. So it's got loads and loads of power. Now, having said that, there's a lot of Class D amplifiers these days that are very, very powerful, and they're very, very light. And Class D amps are more efficient than this class of amp, which is all analog. However, and this is a personal preference, because I quite like Class D amps, but for me, something like this is a little bit old school. However, it's got that old school power right down to the bottom. It's like it just does not give up. My 400 RB and 800 RB I've had on the road for 25 years. Believe me, GK makes a good product. They're very solid. You know, they have very few failures. But without wasting too much more time, let's hear it, because it all starts with the sound. Now I've got this set at a relatively quite a low volume, and it really doesn't shine 100% until you crank it a bit, and I can't do that in here. But at the moment, this woofer control is controlling the complete output because I'm in full range mode on the speaker. And I can tweak the EQ to my taste to add mid-scoop via the contour control bass. If I bring up the level there and drop the master and give it a bit more of the boost control, you can start to hear that growl, that GK signature growl. Sort of like harmonic distortion, really. I don't really use it that high. I like it pretty clean, and I use this boost control to add a little bit of fatness to the bottom. And I really like it that way. If I go into biamp mode on this cabinet, which has a switch on the back, so if you want to tame the tweeter a little bit in full range mode, there is an attenuator on the back. This switch is now in biamp. I'll turn the woofer off. I'll bring up the tweeter. And now you can hear that there's just the tweeter. A lot of the times when you have that tweeter setting quite high, you can limit the high end of it. So there's a kind of filter on it that does the high cut, just so that you don't get hiss and noise that you don't really need. And the woofer, similarly, you can high cut it so it doesn't encroach into the tweeter territory. I'm going to leave those both off. I'm going to put the tweeter at 12 o'clock. Now it's got its own 50 watt amp in there. The amp driving the woofer is 700 watts at 8 ohms. Now if I bring in the woofer, you can dial in as much tweeter as you want. Let's have a look. Now I'm going to push in the high cut for the woofer. Adding a bit of presence there now is going to add some sparkle on the top, if that's what you like. And now this is one of those amps where if you have a 5-string like this one, and I know Denver where these are made is a mile high, but the B string on this goes the other way and it just burrows down. It's got a very, very big sound on the B string, and it gets right down there. And this amp, especially with the 2 speakers at volume, has no trouble coping with that sort of bottom end. Naturally, this is the smallest cabinet that they make, and I like it because of its portability, and I have 2 of them. So I can take 1 or I can take 2 for bigger shows, and I've never ever needed for more sort of speakers to do the job. However, there is a 115, there is a 212, a 410 and a 412. So you can mix and match cabinets, or you can buy a single cabinet like a 410 If you're happy with that, you get the full power of the amp into that cabinet. I imagine the 412s produce a much bigger sound than just two single 12 boxes, of course, and similarly the 212 would have similar sound to the two separate 112 boxes, but it's a bigger box, so it may have a bit more bottom or something like that. I've never reached the limits of the amp, so they've got the power, that's for sure. So if you were looking for, if you were running 100, 200, 300 watt amp and you find you're maxing it out and usually limiters kick in and your sound changes and you just need to be at that volume, what you really need is headroom that something like this will give you. And having said that, at those kind of levels, I'm a big advocate of hearing protection, and I highly recommend a good set of earplugs to cut the level down in your ears. I know you're going to need to be loud to compete with the rest of the band in big rooms. However, if you put them in half an hour before the show, you won't even notice they're there. It'll bring the level down so it does not damage your ears, and you still cover the room. So protect your hearing. That's a big thing for me too, because I've managed to retain most of mine. I've lost a little bit with age, but I can hear perfectly well, and I enjoy it. And I use in-ear monitors a lot, and I keep them at the same level too, because it's easy to send yourself deaf with any of this stuff. Don't do it, is my advice. So you can see that the amp has all the connectivity you'd ever need. It's got those pro features. They're used on big concert stages around the world. Touring companies use them a lot because they're very, very reliable. And I like having that analog amplifier, even though it's less efficient, it just sounds good to me. So if you're looking for an amp that's going to go the distance volume-wise, and it's not going to have too many problems along the way of years of use, I highly recommend a GK. Of course, they're not everybody's flavour, and every amp has some sort of signature quality to it that people like or dislike. And GK may not be your cup of tea, so you look elsewhere. It's not just GK. But for me, especially if I'm playing in my blues band or any sort of rock, anything like that, this is the amp that when you really need that power and you need it to just punch out there and to be relentless all night, this is the amp to do it with, for me anyway. So a really cool amp, I recommend. A really cool cabs. The good thing about the Neos is as you crank them up, they're not like ceramic speakers. They don't actually start to break up. They just stay exactly the same. The sound just gets bigger. So they may be your cup of tea or may not be, but it pays to just check it out and see how you feel about it. And let me know in the comments below if you have questions, or if your experience is different to mine, or if you're more in the flavour of the Class D amps that are coming out now. And I know GK is putting out some nice Class D stuff. But for me, I suppose because, I've had this for a number of years, and I really don't mind the weight. If I'm going to schlep two cabinets, schlepping the amp's not going to be any problem. And I know it's got the guts and the power to do the job, so I'm pretty happy with that. Feel free to disagree on the Class D thing. I like them. I still hear a slight difference in their sound. So it may just be me, okay? But there may be something to it. But certainly playing this thing is always a pleasure, especially when you can get into a room where you can crank it up a bit, let it open up a bit, So GK 1001RB, if it's your cup of tea, highly recommend you check it out. Try it with a few different cabinets, depending on what's going to fit in the back of your car. If you're lucky enough to have a road crew, go for the 412s. That's killer. And you should be pretty happy with your sound with one of these. So thank you very much for watching and spending this time with me. I hope you found it informative. And until next time, keep playing bass, keep making music, keep it live, guys, because it's really important. And God bless, be well. I'll see you at the next video. Thank you for watching.